There you go. The nice Zoom woman has told us that recording is in progress. So, welcome everybody. It's absolutely fantastic to see you here. Thank you for coming to the Our Social Lives webinar. We're quite a big group today, so we're going to ask everybody to stay on mute unless we're in the group work bits that we're doing later. All my colleagues are going to introduce themselves as they speak. But before we start, I want to say to you all that this has been a massive team effort. So it could take me the best part of the next hour if I were to list everybody who's helped make this happen. But we really want to thank them all. So the people presenting today are not the only people who've been a part of this. And in fact, I recognise a few faces on my screen. So I think some of you are here. And it's absolutely brilliant to see you here. I can see lots of people are using the chat. You're very welcome to use the chat. If you've got a real problem, then let us know in the chat and we'll try and sort it out. There are quite a few of us here today who want to help support make this session go well. So I think before we go any further, then my colleague Liz is going to share some slides with you. I'll give her a second to get that up. And I'm going to hand over to Victoria, who will introduce herself and will tell us a little bit about the history of the Our Social Lives peer research project.
Thank you, Sam. Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to Our Social Lives. My name's Victoria. I work here at ARC England, and this is a project called Our Social Lives that was developed for people with a learning disability to really be heard. It was a co-produced research project that we ran through 2024 and 2025 last year. And really, this work has come about through our amazing colleagues across our steering group, who I know are going to be able to introduce themselves properly. They do a brilliant video and tell you more about the project in a little while. But our colleagues, Jenny, Philip, Kathy, Katie, and Christopher, who is also our steering group chair, brought this to life as part of our work with Learning Disability England, Paradigm, and Sam Clark having this great conversation with our former director, Clive Parry, who I can see in the audience today, to find out more about what was available to people pre-COVID and before the pandemic, and to make sure that things that were going on in people's lives were potentially available, and that we should really have a good look as a research unit as part of what we do here at ARC England into that. So this is the first project that we've ever undertaken. It's fully led by people with lived experience. It's included lots of people's families. And as Sam said, there's many, many people to thank. We've got a huge amount of peer interviewers, all the people that were participants in the research, and many, many other colleagues who've helped us deliver this. We are very, very grateful, however, to the Raising the Roof Foundation, who helped fund the project, and the Wiki reporting tool, which you can probably hear more about later and find out on our website as well. And also to the members of ARC England's Learning Disability and Autism Research Unit, who really helped us catalyse and fund the project to bring it to completion and to bring it to you today. But as I say, our biggest thanks goes to all the interviewers and to the people who supported them to complete the research. So you can see Jenny here. Some of the training was co-produced with Jenny from Together All Are Able, and was really part and parcel of helping us do this interviewing process. She says that the training was challenging as well as an innovation for her. The trainee interviewers worked really hard to learn the skills that they needed and to ask people about their social lives for the research. And it took a long time to do that as well, and to look into whether we really have seen into people's lives. I think it's fascinating. I think it's a peek into somebody's own diary and to really see how they live in communities and to find out what matters to them. There's also some sad things. So I am going to say to you, please be aware some of these things are not always very nice, and people did have positive and negative things to tell us. But we want to really talk about what the good things we have seen have been. So I'm going to ask Liz to move us forward on the next slide. As I say, this was a great project. We had 25 peer researchers and they basically co-produced and delivered this. All of the interviews that have made it back to us are here today, and many of them were written by hand. One of them was 122 pages long, and it was three people's interviews. So it's just a huge amount of narrative we've taken from people. Next slide, please. What we did find out about COVID was things really changed for people. There were positives as well as there were negatives, though. Lots of the individuals reported reduced access to services post COVID, and many people told us that the services they used to attend, particularly discos, theatre trips, community events, and the things that we know really mattered to them, were no longer able to be accessed due to funding issues, due to venues closing, staff shortages, or changes in routine. A number of people also expressed that COVID really disrupted their routines, which has had a lasting impact on their mental health, their confidence, and their overall social engagement with their community. Lots of people did find positives, though, and we're going to talk more about how things were for those individuals. Next slide, please. So, as I say, it's taken a huge amount of time, taken 96 hours for us to transcribe all of this information, and we're going to bring it to you next. It's all part and parcel of our raw and brilliant responses. Next slide, please, Liz. We spoke to 88 people, so just under half of them were men, and there were 30 women that were interviewed. Two people were non-binary. Next slide, please. When people were asked what their disability status, they shared with us that 27 of them had a learning disability only. 14 people had both learning disability and autism. Some 12 people had learning disabilities as well as a physical disability, and there were some individuals who were autistic only. Next slide, please. People ranged in age. I mean, it's fascinating. Our youngest participant was 18 and our oldest was 76, but the most number of people that we spoke to was in the mid range, though it was from about age 30 to age 42. Many people lived at home with their own families, but lots of people also lived in their own environment with nobody else. And some people had housemates, they lived in supported living or in shared homes. Lots of people also uh, shared that they had lived there for a long time. So we had lots of people that had been living in the same place for a long period of time. Next slide, please, Liz. I'm going to let the steering group now tell you from their own words how they worked with this short video.
Welcome. This is a short film about the Our Social Lives Project Steering Group. It is about how the steering group worked together. Let's meet the people on the Our Social Lives Steering Group.
Hello, my name is Christopher. My role in the project is to make sure the project stays steering.
Hi, I'm Jenny. I am from the Wirral and I was part of the Our Life steering group.
Hello, I'm Phil, and I am part of the Our Lives steering group, and I'm from York.
I'm Kate Peacock, and yes, I was co-facilitating the steering group with Christopher. I'd just like to bring in Kathy here, who's not with us today, but Kathy Liddell was part of the steering group as well.
Here's a little bit about the project.
Yeah, so this project is really all about discovering and finding out about the social lives of learning disabled and autistic people, very loosely based on the REACH Standard 8, which is all about people having the right to choose their social life, make their own decisions, and how they are part of their community and how involved they are in their community and exactly what their community is and what it means to them.
What is a social life?
At first we thought, oh, what is a social life to start with? We had to really kind of think about what that meant, didn't we, Christopher? Do you remember those early conversations? Because I think we use that term quite loosely, and so we defined it, it's about really how we spend our time, our free time, and how we choose that. So that could be going out, or it could be doing something at home, it could be chatting on the phone to friends. So we really had to work hard together, didn't we, Jenny and Phil, to think about what it actually meant.
The team also spent time thinking about the things that might affect people's social lives.
Family, how much money they have, how they get around, as in transport, support, and how they're feeling every day. It can also mean about their health as well.
We also talked about as well people's hobbies and interests, when they're, and what they're interested in, as well.
We realised that we needed to think a little bit deeper and broader about people's social lives. So, for example, Christopher talked about someone he knows up in Yorkshire who had been missing quite a lot of their social lives because they were unwell. And so we kind of thought about the impact that might have on their, not just their lives and their social lives, but their well-being, and where they felt they belonged, and could they actually express what they wanted to do and what would make them feel better.
Who decided on the interview questions?
All of us decided what question went in the research. All came together to talk about the question. We worked really hard on the question.
Tell us about how you worked together on this project.
Most of our work took place on Zoom chat, so that we all could be involved in the group when writing the question. And we listened to each other's views.
I just wanted to follow up on Christopher's point there. It was really important to honour people's real lives, so meet at times that were convenient. And as you can imagine, with a steering group, that wasn't always easy. So but again, to make sure that everybody had the power of and control of this the project and steering it, that was something that we had to work with and make sure that everybody's comfortable and able to give their best work. It was really important to us that those people involved in the interviews were supported by people that knew them really well and could help them to communicate and express their views and their thoughts. We developed skills to help understand people so we could see if people were comfortable.
How were carers involved?
Ultimately, the people who were interviewed were people who have live with learning disability and or autism. But obviously we cannot forget that often they're supported very closely by their family carers. Having Kathy on the steering group was really, really important and really helpful. She was coming from her place of lived experience and could input, and she was determined that we must recognise the role that family carers play in supporting people with a social life.
There was on the training, there was I think a couple of carers that were on that supporting individuals.
What did you like best about being part of the steering group?
What I liked best is catching up with new friends, old friends, and basically helping out Katie with this steering group project. Something I've never been in before, and it's really helped me with my social skills.
I helped co-produce and deliver the training to train interviewers to actually do interviews with people, with Rod from ARC, the Association for Real Change, which was just really amazing, and actually also meeting the interviewers that were doing that training.
For me, it's the co-production side of it. Co-production means you are working together as a team to co-produce something that I've never done before about social life. I also enjoyed developing the questions.
Everything about it was co-produced, as Christopher has already mentioned. The interviewers were people with lived experience of learning disability and autism, and they interviewed people, their peers, who also had a learning disability or autism. And it was really important to us that we involve people who can be left aside and not involved. So people who don't use words to communicate, for example. So right from the very beginning, it was all about people doing it for themselves, really, with their peers.
What needs to happen next?
Firstly, we want to make sure that our life project doesn't sit on a shelf, and it want to develop change for people with learning disability and autism.
People are suffering. People need to listen.
I believe that this work could change something. It's about change happening.
Thank you to the team that made the video. I hope you enjoyed it just as much as I did. Yeah, Matt, thank you for giving them a round of applause. I think they did a great job, didn't they? Explaining how we worked and what happened. And now what we want to do, because this project has been all about trying to make sure that as many people as possible have a say in it, that we all get a chance to think about what this is like and how it affects us. But as Christopher says, that this project leads to change. So what we want to do now is ask you to just think about one of the questions that the team had. And one of the questions that the team came up with that the interviewers worked on was, who are the most important people in your life? And I think Liz or my colleague Rachel, Liz or one of them, is going to give us a screenshot. Yeah, there you go. Rachel's put it in the chat. Thank you very much. Now, if you can click on the link that Rachel's put in the chat, and that will take you to a screen where you can say who are the most important people in your life, or you can do it on your phone. I often do it on my phone. If you're clever with QR codes, then you can do it on a QR code and take a picture of the screen. Or if none of that works for you, you can just write it in the chat and we'll capture it and add it in later. But have a go at telling us, who are the most important people in your life? In a minute, we're going to tell you what everybody who took part said, but we wonder what, for us to start thinking about that ourselves. Who are the people? Rachel, are people starting to share answers with us?
Yes, can you see that?
No, we've only got the QR code and the...
Oh, you shouldn't have.
We haven't got the answers.
I can see, in fact, that 35 people
There you go. There you go.
answered. Has it come through?
Yeah. Yeah,
Great.
it's fantastic. So lots of you are saying family and friends and your dog and husbands, wives, colleagues, partner, your children. Lots and lots of us. Um, it is about friends, family, pets. Neighbours is a really great point, isn't it? Our neighbours can be really important in our lives, can't they?
Lots more family and friends in the chat, husband, family, friends, neighbours as well.
Brilliant. Yeah, yeah. So thank you all of you for that. We'll share a copy with you afterwards and you can keep adding. Now, just before we move on to the next bit where you get a chance to tell us what you think is when our colleague Rod is going to tell you what everybody we heard, spoke to, told us in a minute. And after that, we're going to go into breakout groups. So if you really want to be in a breakout group with somebody who you're here with, but you're not in the same room, then I need you to tell me in the chat. So if you can do that in a second, I'll try and make sure you go in the same group as somebody you want to be with. But you've got to tell me their name as they appear on the screen, because occasionally you set me a challenge and I don't know what to do when I can't find the person who you've told me it is. So thank you for that, Richard, and thank you to all of you. I can see we'll capture the ones from the chat. I'm going to hand you now back to Rod, who's going to tell us what actually the people who took part in interviews said.
Thanks, Sam. And hi, everyone. Nice to see so many people here this afternoon. It was also nice to be name checked by Jenny earlier on as well. So people who I don't know, my role in the project was to recruit, train alongside Jenny, and then support the project interviewers. So I'm not going to do, because I know that there's a lot of people here this afternoon with communication support needs. I'm not going to do much other than just kind of read the slides out to you, just that everybody's got the same starting point for when we do go into the small groups. So I'll elaborate a little, but not that much. And I've also got about 20 slides I'm supposed to work through in about 10 minutes. So this is going to be a little bit of a rush, I'm afraid, but we will give you the link to the full report, including the accessible version. So you will be able to read it at your leisure after today. But yeah, this is what people. So the first bit of feedback here is about what people telling us exactly what you just told us. So who were the most important in their lives? And we have a few quotes at the bottom of quite a few of the slides, which I think give you the kind of the real colour. In addition, just to the pure statistics. So there's the first one here. My family are important because they're my loved ones. I enjoy spending time with them, having fun with them, being able to celebrate, particularly with nieces and nephews' achievements. You can see that, can't you? That brings it to life. Can we have the next slide, Liz, please? And when we did a word cloud for, say, the exercise that you've just done, it's not so hugely different, I suppose. I suppose the kind of the obvious thing that's kind of really missing here, I suppose, is things like husband, wife, partner. And again, that would reflect what we know to be true for so many people with learning disabilities, that they really do struggle to make those intimate relationships that so many of us take for granted. It's notable as well, I think, from the stats that Victoria showed earlier on, that the sort of the average age, I suppose, average age of respondents was about 40 years old, and the most common place that people lived was still at home with their parents. Again, just a reflection of kind of what we know to be true, I suppose, but it's good to see that actually borne out through the peer research that this project entailed. Next slide, please, Liz. So yeah, family bonds, most important to people. So people might mention my family 69 times out of 80. Did we say it was 88? I think the interviews that we managed to describe in the end, is a huge proportion. I love my mum, strong family connections, which everybody spoke about that, promoting their well-being. But also support workers actually mentioned even more commonly than family. And I don't think that cropped up in the Menti that we just did. Liz, next slide, please. Oh, haven't we just had that one? No. Why are these people important to you? God, read the headline, Rod. So why are these people to you? Yeah. So things like the words that came up most commonly, they're obviously, just help, love. Things is an interesting one, isn't it? I'd like to know what the precursor to that word was. Things cropping up so many times without any kind of further elaboration. Yeah, support, help, love, together, care. Yeah. Can we move on this? And this is what people told us about who they like to spend time with. And again, a little bit of colour here. My best friends are important because life would be quite lonely without them. But we had well over a quarter, getting on for a third of people saying that they don't see the people that really matter to them as often as they would like. And again, stressing the importance that my best friend is very good with me, helps me with my mental health, but equally just to be. Lovely. Liz, next slide, please. Social connections important to people. People were using Zoom a lot. This is obviously the post-COVID thing, the thing that we all learned. I think one of the really good things about that was it was how empowering it was, I think, for so many people to learn alongside each other. So my personal experience not personal experience at work, in the projects I was involved with, was that I knew no more about Zoom than the supported people that I was working alongside in those sessions. And so the joy of actually learning something together and that being a very equalizing process was significant. And loneliness, of course, Victoria said earlier on, there is obviously some pretty sad stuff in there, and loneliness came up as a very recurring theme. And sometimes the cause for that is changes to people's routines. A lot, and again, an awful lot of that happened during COVID. Next slide, please, Les. Are there times you feel lonely? And again, some of the sadness that comes through there, you can see a real strength of feeling there, which again is quite difficult to look at. Next slide, please, Liz. And what people said, so again, a bit more colour here, just direct quotes from people who were interviewed. Try to keep myself busy, but I do get lonely. I find it very hard. I feel sad if I'm alone too much. I've got mum, but it's not the same since I've lost my brother. I get depressed sometimes. Next one down. I'm very chatty and sociable, so I like to be around other people. I would feel lonely if I didn't see them, and sad, I'd be unhappy as it's important to me. And then finally, I could very easily feel isolated because of my communication difficulties. I sometimes come across as not always as friendly as I could be. It's really important to get to know me well. Thanks, Liz. Independence. So we asked people about independence as well. And most people were making their own choices about going out. And I don't know if that's kind of distorted by the people that we spoke to, the particular cohort. It's very difficult, I think, to ascertain, how generally true these comments are. But of the people that we spoke to, most of them were making decisions to an extent reliant on family support, as you would expect. And also people feeling as though they lacked that sort of sense of privacy when they were in shared living spaces. And I think that last comment there is also significant. Some people feel pressured by other people to go out and socialise, or struggle with changes due to autism or anxiety. Thank you, Liz. And who decides when you go home in the evening? Well, again, comfortably more than half of the people we spoke to said that they decided they have a choice. And then the bit of kind of that, I always decide, and it depends how I feel as to whether I stay out late. Great. Nice to have the positive stuff as well. And then, intriguingly, that special case is there. Oh, wait, who decides when you go home in the evening? Me, or how drunk I get? Next one, Liz. Barriers. What were the barriers to going out and doing what you wanted to do? What gets in the way? So the most commonly cited aspects there were money, transport, health, including social fatigue, and accessible venues. And the quotes there, there's nowhere for me to go. There's nowhere for me to go for respite, as the place I used to go in Southport is now shut down. And someone else said, I don't know of any accessible venues for people with physical issues like mine. I had to pay separately when I want support, as it provided all the help I needed, but it's now closed. On we go, Ness. We asked people about safety and what would make people feel more welcome in their communities. And this is purely quotes we have here. I think probably some organisations, when you're speaking to people in your community, There's still a long way to go to get a human response, that kind of frustrations I suspect that we nearly all feel about being stuck on phones and stuck on computers rather than being to speak to actual people. Someone else said, to say, for example, we wanted to raise about the street lights, and you probably go onto a computer and sometimes it's just easiest to speak to a person. Again, that frustration, those barriers that technology so often put in the way of people. I don't know if my social services allocation has gone. When I first started going there once a year, now not at all. And then finally, I'd say yes, I do at times. I particularly feel it in winter. So I feel when the nights are darker and when the clocks change, it's more difficult to go out. Next one, please, Liz. Hobbies. There we go. Next work cloud. So these are the things that are most commonly cited by people. Walking. For instance, it would have been, this might have been an interesting Menti to have done for the people in the stream as well, I think, wouldn't it? Walking, friends, music, love, football, playing, film, and a host of other things as well. So really lots and lots of different activities cited across the 88 odd people for whom we actually managed to gather all the data. Thank you, Liz. So just a few picked out there, headline issues: crafting, walking, photography, sports, online gaming, such as Switch and PlayStation. Thank you, Liz. And then money matters, getting quite close to the end here, money and work. So we did ask people about who managed their finances, and it turned out that many people, probably most people, actually needed from help or from family or friends to manage their money. Most people were not financially independent in terms of the decisions that they made and how that money was spent, and even the mechanisms for using that money. And most of the benefits that people get, direct benefits, are used to fund activities and support. Let's go on, Liz. Next one, please. So a couple of quotes here again, just to add a little bit of colour to that. So someone said, I recently had a social care assessment and it showed that I was eligible for support, but the contribution I would have to pay would cost more than if I paid for support privately. And they carried on to say, I don't know how to go about this, so I've ended up just staying the same and having support from my close friends. I don't think this is good enough. Thanks, Liz. And then on into work, and we're getting towards the end here, just before we put you into the small groups to look for your response to all of these findings. So we found that 16 people were in paid work. I think that's probably a reasonably high proportion compared with the national average, and it may say something about the people that we interviewed. And another 17 were working in unpaid posts. So again, here's the colour on this one, the quotes. Work colleagues are important. Because like having the right support at work, and that really is important. And again, to support each other, because we work quite difficult times and difficult pressures, and there to support each other. Someone else said, work colleagues I see probably at least once a week. I work across quite a big service, so I bet there's people I'll see more regularly than others. Like with my manager and like my supervision at work, try to do that like face to face, even if that's outside of work, or do it. And finally, I have PIP and ESA, but not required to look for work. So our takeaway there is that some people want to work, but stress, lack of support, or the fear of losing benefits is what stops people. So again, it might be, this is kind of telling us to a certain extent stuff we already know, but I think it's just so important that we're hearing it in this way, both by and from supported people. Thanks, Liz. Can we move on, please? And I think that might be me just about done there. Yeah, I'm going to pass back to Sam. As long as Sam's okay with that, I think we did agree you were going to do this slide, Sam. If you finish,
yeah, thank you, Rod.
Groups.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks, Rod. That's brilliant. Thank you very much. So Rod has talked you through a bit of that, and I know that Victoria has been putting links to the easy read summary and the report in the chat. And I guess what we want to do now is start to ask you to help us, all of us, begin to think what needs to happen next. And the steering group talked about this. So the people you saw on the film talked about this a few weeks ago. And the things that they came back with, like the big messages, the recommendations, were about family, friends, partners, chances to love and be loved are essential. They're not just about a social life. They're like the stuff of life, aren't they? I think that's what they said. It's what it really is. We must understand this better, I think. I've got Jenny in my ears saying that kind of stuff. We've got to take this seriously. They also talked about many people are relying on paid services to be able to have that stuff that really matters. And that some favourite groups haven't come back since COVID, and people are still waiting for this to happen. Will they ever restart? What can we do about that? And then the other thing they really picked up on was that some solutions are simple and they impact on loads of people in the wider community. So they might not be easy to make happen, but they're really clear. So some of the stuff that people talked about was about like street lighting and transport. So are there chances to join up with other people? Because, lots of people care about that stuff. And then the steering group really wanted more self-advocacy groups, inclusion in wider community groups, and more inventive ways to meet others. So when you read the report, you'll see that there's a bit that Clive wrote at the beginning that said Sam introduced Katie and Christopher. And part of the reason I did that is because they're part of a group called Exclusively Inclusive in North Yorkshire. And if you haven't heard of them, we'll put it in the chat. But they have done all sorts of things, like they've done their own Come Dine With Me years ago. They've done things, they do things to help people connect and get to know each other and meet each other. So maybe that's a challenge for all of us about this doesn't have to be hard, So I'm sharing these as part of kind of us asking you now to go have a conversation in those groups I mentioned. And have the next slide, please, Liz. And yeah, fantastic. And so we want to give you a chance to think about this. Are those good recommendations or main points that the steering group make? Would you change those? Would you add to them? Are there things that aren't in there? But also, we really want to think about, Christopher at the end of that film said, this has to lead to change. Something has to happen. So we want to ask you to think about what action can you take? Whoever you are, what can you do? Can you have a come down with me round your way? Can you make a difference to how something happens in your work? And also, who can you tell about this so they take action? Because we know that not everything can be done by a small group of people, but we want to invite us all to think about what we can do. So, and we're going to ask you to record this online again in another thing called Menti. So we're going to put the chat to that. It's a different one. We're going to put the link to that in the chat. And you need to click on that before you go in a group, because when you go in a group, this chat will disappear for you. It'll be here when you come back. It's a little bit like leaving a room. It'll be here when you come back. But you need to click on that before we go.
It'll be here when you come back, yeah.
Sorry, Christopher?
It'll be here when you come back.
Yeah, it will be here when you come back. And hopefully we'll all be here. Yeah, I know Tom's got his hand up. Yeah, I know Tom's got his hand up. I'm going to ask him if what it is in a second. I had seen it. So, Tom, do you want to come in with something before we go into group? Because I'm about to put everybody into a group. Oh, you're on mute, Tom.
You're not on mute, Tom.
If Tom could come into my breakout room, Sam, we can figure that out.
You can. That's perfect. I think Tom is in your breakout room.
Excellent.
So if I've made a mistake, you've got 20 minutes. You've got 20 minutes in your group. If I've made a mistake and not got you in the right group, you just have to press the blue lever one and I'll put you back in the right group. But hopefully I've tried to make sure everybody's in the groups they asked. So Zoom by magic should move you now. has it not invited you to go to a room? Right, Rachel, did people manage to share anything on the Menti? Can we show them that?
Some people did. In our group, we realised that we were a bit busy chatting and we weren't all putting our ideas in there. So some people might still want to add things.
So you can
We're
still do
chatting,
that.
but there is some responses.
Fantastic. And I see in the chat that there's a request for Claire Bates to share the research she's doing, and I will do a plug in case any of you don't know. Claire helps organise a network called Supported Loving, and I don't know that you all know it, and if you don't, I would strongly recommend that you check it out. And maybe one of us who can Google it or maybe Claire will put the link in the chat before we finish today. But do check out Supported Loving. And it looks like Claire's doing some research that we might all want to know about as well. So fantastic. And I can see that people are talking about sharing this with people you know, and people wanting to find ways to take this learning and the report to Parliament. And want to think about the things that stop people having a good life as well as what helps. And people are going to somebody's going to take it back to their commissioning team. So there's loads of stuff that you're all doing. And we want to really encourage you to think about this this doesn't belong to the team that did this. This belongs to all of us. And this is something we can all do something about, is about thinking about how we all support everybody to have the kind of relationships that they want, you know. So before we finish this, we've got a little bit more work we want you to do. So Rachel is going to share another Menti with us. And we want to ask you to help us tell us what you think is the most important message from today. So if and we've got another link for you to click on. If you had to think, it's like a test, isn't it? You had to think, so it's in the chat now. So there's a QR code or there's a link you can just click on. What's the really big message from today that you want to leave everybody else with? Be proactive. Pauline's already put in the chat, be proactive. That's a great message for us all, isn't it? That's a fantastic message. Thank you, Pauline. Be ambitious for people you know. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. It's really important that we all just get to do the stuff that makes sense to us, doesn't it? So one of the things, take some clock and a night out. It's not true that I always buy the drinks, Matt. You're not going to get me to do that, you know. But I mean, I do like a bit of a chat and a night out. Community. So think about the community we're all a part of. Don't be scared of risks. Yeah, and so somebody's put in the chat, speak out. Absolutely. Absolutely. Encourage a person-centered approach. And I think that's really important, isn't it? Because a really great social life or having the relationships that matter are different for all of us. So, you know, some of you might be people who love to be out partying or want to go to gigs or want to go to really loud, busy places. And some of you might be a bit more like me nowadays, who would be happier in their pajamas on the sofa. But you know, that's all right, isn't it? It's got to be about us doing what we think. Don't be rigid in our thinking about capacity assessments. They're not black and white. Absolutely. And Emily's talked about collaboration and partnership working across organisations. I think that's really important, isn't it? And thanks, Claire. Claire has put the Supported Loving mailing list form in the chat. So if any of you don't know about supported living, you can join and find out about it. So you can keep adding to that. And like I say, we will gather up the things from the chat as well. And in order for us to make sure that we don't keep you longer than we said we would, because hopefully you've all got stuff to do that is interesting and fun, as well as maybe some work things or some boring things that you have to do. We're going to hand back. Oh, I love that. Let's end on this. Nothing will change if we do nothing. Yes. And somebody's mentioned human rights, and it is Human Rights Day. So brilliant. It's a human right to have a private life. Family and private life is a right we have. And everybody should have that, shouldn't they? And one of the things we heard from Rod, and we heard in the research when you see the reports, is that some people found it hard to get privacy, to be able to see people, family, friends, partners. That really matters, doesn't it? So thank you, Rachel. You can all keep adding to that, and we can come back to it and have a look at the end if we get a chance. But what we're going to do now is we're going to hand back to Victoria, who's going to just kind of finish off telling us what we plan to do next, because we're not just asking you to do stuff. We have some ideas, and she's going to share what we might do next with this work. And I think Liz is going to share that on a presentation again.
So we're back to that. Some fascinating feedback, lots and lots of really rich discussion in our group as well about hidden disabilities, which has also popped up in the chat, and the idea that things are accessible when they're actually not for many people across the community. Lots of rich discussion in our group. So what's next with our plan? I'll just check whether this is ready to go before I carry on speaking. We'll re-pop the links to where this information is going to be held on our website, which you can see the easy read content as well as the full written report. But we plan to do an awful lot. So we want to finish off the report, but incorporating reflections and decisions from today. I can't see your screen, Liz. I'm going to jump in if you've got a problem.
I was just going to ask, can you see it? Because I can, but I was becoming aware that you can't. I'll stop it and try again.
Let me try, see if I can do double. Let's see. Can you see that?
We've got it on presenter mode rather than so we can see all of the slides.
And I can only see the big one. That's not helpful, is it? Well, let's look. Just close the window and retry again, shall we? Can you see that?
Oh, it's still on the presenter version. Let you swap
Stay
up
as I
the
am. Can you
top.
see the big screen? One of them big.
One is bigger than the other, yes.
One's bigger. It's just the last two now. One's bigger than the other, Victoria.
Okay, fine. I can only see a full screen, so I'm sorry. We plan to do next, we're going to complete the next steps in the report, following on from today and taking your thoughts and feedback and incorporating that into our core recommendations that you've seen already. I think they really do mirror with that. And as I said, everything's available on our website, so you'll be able to see the updated version. We want to run more sessions. We have to get this project out to more people. And so if you have groups or if you have connections from different organisations or fora where we can take our social lives, we would love to have the opportunity to do that. We are happy to do it in person as well as online. So please get in touch. Sam and Liz and I will pop our details in the chat, and you can find them on the website as well. You can get in touch with Rod directly. He gave his email address earlier. And we really want to share this with government. So we had lots of conversations in our chat as well about the Department of Work and Pensions. So we talked a bit about benefits and encouraging people to work and making sure that they can have a social life as well as a working life. We also want to talk with people like the Department of Health and Social Care and the Casey Commission, which is an independent commission looking at the lives of individuals accessing care and support up and down the country. And we also really want to include this work as a key message in other projects that we will do, both at ARC England and Learning Disability England and Paradigm and our partners in our work. So we're becoming more and more interested in how we can take this on. We would love to do another Our Social Lives or extend the research. And so there may be academic research opportunities for us to take some of this information and do some more with that. We really look forward to doing more. And it's finally back to me, I think just to say a huge thank you to everybody who's been involved, both from the ARC team and also all of our peer interviewers and absolutely everybody who's been part of this from the very start. It's just been a phenomenal project. One of the most exciting things I think we've worked on here at ARC England for a really long time. And I hope that we've done it justice this afternoon to share with you what we've felt is a beautiful peek into the lives of ordinary people up and down our country and in our communities. Thank you again for giving us this opportunity. I'm going to hand back to Sam for a final word. Please get in touch with us. Everything that you think is important for us to convey, we want to do so. This is your project.
Thank you. Thanks, Victoria. Yes, so my job is to just say thank you to all of you for coming. And thank you for sharing your ideas and your thoughts. Thank you for being up for thinking about what you can do. And we really urge you to do that. If I'd been really organised, I'd have that little clip of Christopher at the end of the film saying, this must lead to something happening, because I think we should all bear that in mind. And I think there are loads and loads of reasons why we might think this is hard. But actually, it's so human. We have to do it, don't we? We have to make sure more people get to live the life that they want with the relationships that make sense to them. So again, I want to thank Victoria and Liz and all of the steering group for everything they've pulled together for today, and Rod for his mammoth input bit. And let us know, keep in touch and tell us, what you can, how we can support anything you're doing or share this more, because like Victoria says, we want to get it out there. And thank you to all of those of you who were interviewers or who were interviewed who are here today. If you're one of them, thank you very much. Take care of yourselves. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks, everybody.